everybody, it's Alison Heikkila, and it is time for some January card hopping. We are going to make a sympathy card today. So I've got the Spring Bird stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. They do have coordinating dies, but I don't have them. And I just showed you the branch and the bird that I chose to use, and I stamped them with VersaFine Clair in Nocturne ink on some Canson mixed media paper. I love using that paper. The ink is fantastic, and I pulled out and literally dusted off my old Berol design Spectracolor pencils from back when I was in high school. They stopped making these pencils in, I think, 1999. So that gives you an idea of how old these pencils are. And truth be told, I used them quite a bit. In fact, my sister used them a lot too. They're fantastic pencils, and I wish they were still available on the market. I started off with a lighter green, and I'm just starting to work in some color on the leaves. The trick with colored pencils is that you need to build up your layers. You can't just lay down one color flat and just think that it's done if you're trying to get, something that looks really cool. I'm not knocking if you only want to do one layer, that's totally fine. But if you really want to get some nice effects, building up color with your pencils is definitely the way to go. So I went in with more of a mossy green. I created just a simple vein line down the center, nothing crazy. I don't work with colored pencils at all anymore, and it makes me kind of bummed. They're too hard for me to work with. My hands give me trouble because of my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and markers are quite a bit easier for me. The pressure of applying the pencil is pretty tricky. And I'm really out of practice, I'm seeing as I watch myself color these leaves. But they come out okay in the end. I'm not getting graded, and it's the thought that counts, right? So I went in with a third shade of green that I showed you there, just to brighten it up a little bit and help the colors blend. And you can see that the point of my pencil fell out. A lot of my Spectracolors had gotten shattered on the inside, so they tend to break quite a bit, which is a bummer. Working on some browns now for the branch, and if you saw some weird textural stuff on the end of the pencil, that's the foam that holds the pencils in place in the case. They have this beautiful vinyl case that they came in, and it turns out that it's also a stand, which is very cool. But again, these things are from the late 90s, so the foam is pretty old, and I didn't use my pencils for a while, and so the foam has started to stick to the edge. There, you can see it there. The foam has started to stick to the edge of the pencils where it touches, which is whatever. It doesn't affect the quality of the pencils. They're still great. I wish that they weren't so shattered on the inside with some of them, but I still love them. And I'm working on blending. I'm not going too crazy because it was a difficult pain day for me yesterday when I filmed this. We had a pretty bad rainstorm coming, which always affects my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and the wind was ridiculous, and that also affects it. So I didn't do as much colored pencil coloring as I would have liked, but it is what it is, and I'm very happy with what I came out with at the end. So now I'm just coloring the bird, and it is much more vibrant in my video than it is in person. It looks almost neon, but in real life, it's more toned down. Hopefully my photos that I show at the end will show a better version of the way the colors actually look here. The foliage and whatnot is also a little bit brighter than it should be on my camera. But I think I adjusted it better at the end. You'll see it at the very end of the video. So this is a monthly card making hop that's brought to you by the members of Handmade Happiness and Card Hoppin, which is on Facebook. And this month, we're doing something a little bit different. If you followed these hops before, usually we have a link list for all of the participants below in our description box. But this time, we are trying to do it with a hashtag instead. So it's a hashtag-driven hop. So what you'll need to do is search the hashtag Card Hoppin Jan 2023. And of course, I will have that listed below. And that's how you'll find all of the participants. So no links this time, just the hashtag. And let me know what you think about that. Do you prefer having permalinks to a specific video, or batch of videos, or are you okay with doing a hashtag driven hop? We're kind of taking a poll to see what everybody likes. So let me know when you leave a comment for me. So we're still working on this bird, and one of my tricks has always been to grab either a gray or white to really smooth out the colors and give me a nice workable area, or to just help me blend those colors a little bit more. You can see how smooth it is where I added that gray on the base of the wings there. It came out really pretty. So we are just going to keep coloring this bird here, and I'm going back and forth with some browns. I wanted to give it some more red undertones, which is why I chose the colors that I did. And I think it came out really sweet. What's nice about these birds is that there's a whole bunch of options in this set, and you can go as realistic or as fantasy as you want. I did not use a reference for this. I just wanted to pick some nice colors that I thought would go good with the ideas I had in my head. I knew I wanted to use a lot of green on this card, and I thought that having some golden yellows would be a nice way to pop that bird up off of the card when I was done with it. And I'm working around the edges here, just kind of smoothing it out. Again, I'm trying to build up some layers, struggling a little bit because, again, I'm out of practice, but I think it came out really sweet in the end. I needed to figure out what to do with around the eye and the chest area, so I grabbed some white, which that cap does not look white anymore. It's very discolored. And the same light brown that I had used, I forget the name of it, on the wings, but I kept it super duper pale. Grab that gray again, back and forth with the gray to the brown to the gray, and then a touch of white. And I kept the eye lighter than the rest of the body to make it stand out, but I did add a little bit of shading down at the bottom just to give it some definition. And then I went and fussy cut it all off camera because you don't need to see all that. So I grabbed the Circle Waves die from Erin Creative, some paper from Carta, some old basic gray paper. You know I've got an amazing stash of basic gray paper and some other stuff. And I die cut those a few times. And using the circle that was left, I found another plain die cut circle from Elizabeth Craft Design so that I can mount everything onto that singular piece so that I can move all the pieces around on my card wherever. And that's just scrap cardstock. It's got some ink on it, as you can see, but nobody's going to know that it's there except for you and me. But I wanted to have an easier time moving my pieces around on the card until I figured out where I wanted it to go. So the theme for this month is new beginnings, and the tools that we needed to use or supplies was either colored pencils or watercolored pencils. And I decided to go with, my colored pencils there. But you might be wondering why I chose a sympathy card for new beginnings. So a close friend of the family just lost their dad earlier this week. And now he and his family need to navigate life knowing that he's gone. I lost my dad 22 years ago, and I'll tell you, it is a completely different world without him. Just as a side note there, I grabbed my Pitt pen that has a brush tip to just go around the edge of my bird there, and I do the same thing with the branch just because I want to make it look nice and clean and neat. So I think I do the branch off camera. Yeah, I did. I do the branch off camera. And I glued all of those pieces together, and now I'm going to just figure out where I want to put the bird on the branch, on the circle, and go from there. So when you lose somebody, your old habits and your emotions, they completely change, right? Because that person is gone. So it's a new beginning for you. And you need to kind of change things. You got to change how you go through life, right? And it's not easy. It really never is. So now my friend, his family, they need to have these new beginnings, these constant new beginnings happening. And I thought that this was kind of a different take. I didn't want to do a bridal card or a baby shower card, which is all well and good, but I wanted to kind of show that you can have a new beginning out of something tragic that happened. And, it's not always easy to kind of go through those motions. But, we're here for those people. Does that make sense? Am I preaching? I'm not trying to preach. I just, I just think about these things, New beginnings are not always positive. Sometimes they're negative, and we need to show our friends and family support when these things happen, right? So I'm doing some basic ink smushing here. You can see that I'm wetting my glass mat. I'm kind of rounding out the edges a little bit with my finger so that I don't have any harsh lines. And I'm just dipping and drying and dipping and drying. Here I decided to grab some Rustic Wilderness because I wanted some more depth. The other colors that I had chosen were beautiful, but a little paler than I had wanted. That Twisted Citron was kind of making its presence known a little bit too much. So I thought that the Rustic Wilderness was going to work. I wanted to have like a background that kind of felt like foliage, like you were kind of staring up into the trees, but it was sort of blurry, like you're focusing on that bird and that branch, and then everything else kind of just blurs out. So that's kind of what I was going for. So now I'm just attaching all of my layers with some Barely Arts glue. I really like how that background came out. It was very hard for me to not go like full Alison and splatter it and add gems and sequins and all of that. But I held back. I didn't want to make it a crazy card. I wanted to keep it simple. So you can see I used scrap there. It says partially happy birthday, but it's all good. Makes it a lot easier to have those pieces pre-mounted on a die cut so that when you're moving things around and figuring out your position, you can kind of go from there. So just adding some more glue. I'm sorry that that's a little bit blurry there. Brought it a little too close to my face. So yeah, I think it's really sweet. Having an acrylic block to hold those pieces down is super helpful. Keeps the weight on there, especially those leaves. I could have probably added some foam there, but I really didn't want to. I wanted to keep it kind of simple, kind of clean. I mean, this is sort of as clean as I go. I did do some ink smushing, but I did not splatter like I wanted to. So I grabbed some Shady Lane VersaFine Clair ink. It's one of my favorite brands of ink. Actually, it is my favorite ink to use for sentiments. And I just stamped that on there, and there it is. See, you can see the colors better now. Don't forget to search the hashtag Card Hoppin Jan 2023 to see everybody else that's participating. I hope you like my card. I hope you like my ideas, and I will see you all very soon. Peace out.